Okay, so I'm Nick Weston. I work for a company called Renishaw. This presentation kind of splits into the first bit is a shameless promotion of Renishaw on the understanding that no one has ever heard of it or understands what we do, and the second half pertains much more towards the AEngD and Renishaw's relationship to it. So Renishaw started almost 30 years ago now, almost 40 years ago now, as a spin-out from Rolls-Royce, not a spin-out from a university, but a spin-out from Rolls-Royce. David McMurtry on the right there was having real trouble when they were laying out the fuel pipes for the Concorde jet engine, the Olympus jet engine. The fuel pipes are so fine and so long and thin, because the engine is very long and thin. In the days before 3D CAD systems, they couldn't lay these pipes out on the drawing board, so they were laying them out. They get their very best fitter to bend them and twist them around the engine to get them in all the right places, and then once they've got the pipes as they like them, they take them off, measure them on a measuring machine and draw them up, and then they can go into series production. Unfortunately, the pipes on the Rolls-Royce jet engine were so fine that as soon as you move the measuring probe up against the pipes were moving out of the way. The factory floor said, well, if you can't measure them, you can't make them. And that's how Renishaw's made its money ever since. If you can't measure it, you can't make it. So over a weekend, he invented a touch trigger probe, built it in his spare room. The first factory was in Chepstow. It was in the one of his colleagues' spare room. The seal on the first touch trigger probe was made from carpet underlay rubber, and they realised they had to move out of the spare room when they ran out of underlay. So they set up a proper company. Everything that Renishaw has, pretty much everything that Renishaw has done in terms of growth has been organic, and it's always based on patented innovations. We're a very technology-heavy, technology-led company, and Sir David is still very much at the helm in getting us to be striving to develop new and more innovative ways of solving problems where there is a real need and people will pay. The second statement being the most important. So this last year's results, we've got up to 300 million. When I joined the company about 15 years ago, I think our annual turnover was about 80 odd million. So we've grown fairly well in terms of turnover. Our operating profit has always stayed about the same kind of ratio. Obviously, we're exporting. Whilst there is a myth that not much manufacturing goes on in the UK that I don't obviously have to explain to you guys. The fact that we can sell 5% of £300 million worth of manufacturing equipment in the UK tells me that we're still a major manufacturing power. As I've said, we're a very R&D intensive company. We spend, well, last year we spent 14.4% on R&D turnover, but that's only because our turnover went up so fast that our R&D expenditure couldn't keep up. So we typically aim for between 15 and 17%. Lots of Queen's Awards. When I joined, there were 850 staff. Now there are 3,000 staff in 32 countries. Again, when I joined, there were just two sites. There was the New Mills site and the Wootton site, and we were just setting up the Edinburgh site. The Edinburgh site came about, which is where I'm the general manager in Edinburgh. The Edinburgh site came about because the coordinate measuring machine on which Renishaw's initial products were all based was invented in Edinburgh, and when Ferranti decided to get out of the coordinate measuring machine game, the CMM design team didn't want to move down to Gloucestershire. So David said, all right, start an office in Edinburgh. And it served us very well because it means we have access to an awful lot bigger skills pool that we wouldn't normally have had if we'd restricted ourselves to Gloucestershire. Most of our stuff is made in the UK and Ireland. So we have pre-production at head office, we have machining and assembly in Wales, more machining in Gloucestershire, assembly in Dublin, and Woodchester, and some of our speciality assembly goes on in a little factory in the middle of the Cotswolds, and we also have some lower margin products that we have to have a complete catalogue, and they get made in Pune in India. So the kinds of things that we make inspection technology, so coordinate measuring machine products, products for checking the quality of your machine tool, like laser interferometers and so forth, tools for measuring whilst you are cutting, and also measuring systems for servo control. We've expanded in the last 7 or 8 years into healthcare, applying our precision motion and machining and measurement capacity so that we can do dental CAD/CAM systems. We do Raman spectroscopy, including medical diagnostics using Raman spectroscopy, and our robotics and servo systems are also now involved in neurosurgery. To give you an idea as to the kind of things that the neurosurgery will allow you to do, a lot of the sort of most modern neurosurgical techniques involve things like deep brain stimulation or direct delivery of drugs into the brain. Traditionally, surgeons have taken an MRI scan, printed off on acetate sheet different layers through the brain in order that they can then, using a felt tip marker, go through and plot a safe route into the brain down a straight line on sheet after sheet after sheet. They then open up someone's skull, drill a little hole, introduce either an electrode or a drug delivery system, and all the time that they're doing that, the patient has to be conscious so that the patient can say, left a bit, right a bit, I can't feel my left hand, I've forgotten the words to whatever. And as soon as the surgeon has it in the right place, he can then say, okay, that's fine, we'll turn the deep brain stimulation on, your Parkinson's disease will go away, or whatever it is. And that can all happen in the space of an 8-hour surgery. If you've got a decent metrology loop, so you can calibrate your MRI scanner, you can calibrate your jigs and fixtures that you're attaching effectively to the patient's skull, and you can calibrate your robot so that it moves accurately in response to where that jig or fixture is, you can then introduce those surgical treatments, whether it be deep brain stimulation or drug delivery, by dead reckoning. It can all take place in an hour. You can get much more accuracy than you can achieve using patient feedback, and you can undertake procedures that you just cannot undertake unless you have good metrology. So, Renishaw's a manufacturer, and we make products that help the manufacturing industry out. One of our excuses for being a manufacturer is we need excuses because we love doing it. One of the excuses for being a manufacturer is that we need to know what problems manufacturers have so that we can solve them for them and sell them some new stuff. We've recently started doing rapid prototyping as part of our new product development process, and we realised that this is actually going to find its way into manufacturing, and we thought we need to get into this rapid prototyping game. So we bought a company from Stone in Staffordshire called MTT Technologies, and they do laser-based additive manufacturing. So that's a company that actually some new engineering doctorate programs are actually being built around in terms of moving that technology on so that it becomes the next step change in how we do manufacturing in industry. We also got a couple of other recent purchases, but these are small beer by comparison with our typical turnover. So it's typically organic growth. Sorry about that. Right, on to the AEngD. So we've had a long involvement with the AEngD over a number of years. So we've had two complete their studies, three are currently writing up, another 6 are at their studies. So you can see that we're ramping up our involvement. The little picture on the right-hand side there is a guy who's currently doing an engineering doctorate at Heriot-Watt University, and he's interested in being able to make very fine pitch, optically interesting structures on simple materials like stainless steel or nickel or whatever. So what he's got there is he's got an 8-micron period grating, and you think, okay, well, to scale that looks like those troughs are about 4 microns deep maybe. Those troughs are actually 200 nanometers deep, and they're controlled in the depth to height is controlled to better than 10%. So he's able to do some very interesting diffractive things with that. And that is a very interdisciplinary project, because he's had to get into the chemistry of how the material behaves under melting, and how the various constituents of the alloys move around and how the surface tension changes. He's had to get into the physics of how the light interacts with the metal, and he's had to get into the control theory of how to get very nice even spacing and power control on his laser. Okay, so the projects that we have going on at the minute, we've got optical filters for Raman spectroscopy, which is what you can see on the right-hand side. That's a patent taken directly out of that engineering doctorate, and it's all about how this lot behaves here. Non-contact freeform surface measurement, I'll talk about that as a little bit of a case study in a few minutes. Prototyping techniques for low temperature co-fired ceramic, if you're not aware of what the acronym means. It's a wonderfully stable metrology material, but a bugger to actually make anything useful with unless you're making a million. So prototyping techniques terrifically useful to us. Laser machining of ceramics, flexible process for manufacturing of diffractive optical elements, which is what I've spoken about already. Design of breakthrough motion controller, and I believe the supervisor of that project is sitting on the front row. Real-time control software for concurrent processing, in-process inspection of composite layup, manufacturing hybrid methods, additive and subtractive manufacturing, which is the additive manufacturing I was talking about earlier. So this is an engineering doctorate research engineer that I supervised in Edinburgh. Yvonne Haddart worked on a non-contact freeform surface measuring device, which works by projecting fringes onto a surface, looking at how those fringes distort using a camera, and translating those distortions into a surface profile of that part. These systems are known. Typically they mean having a very large, very expensive projector with high precision, either high precision moving slides inside them, or inaccurate, unstable LCD projectors or something like that. You can't get accurate data off the LCD projector versions, and you can't make inexpensive and robust moving slide versions. What Yvonne was able to do was to put together a system which has no moving parts, accurate to the diameter of a human hair, so if you don't know what that is, that's about 50 microns or 0.002 of an inch, and it'll capture 10 million data points in a minute. So this is the kind of technology that Renishaw and Edinburgh are now turning into a product. It's going to be products based on this technology, and there'll be a suite of products. We're going to start launching in about 18 months' time. But one of the key things that came out of the engineering doctorate was that we managed to get a number of good journal publications, including one in Optics Express, but we also managed to get 5 patent applications. And those patent applications, I think it was an interesting experience for the academic supervisor when he realized that when you patent something, you don't just patent the way you want to do it when you sell your product. You patent all the plausible alternatives as well. So another company can't come along and sidestep what you've done. And this was a very interesting learning experience for both the academic partner but also the research engineer as well. So to finish off, Renishaw and the engineering doctorate. So the engineering doctorate is by far our most preferred way of doing collaborative research with universities. It's also the most successful way that we have of doing technology transfer. 2 reasons for that. As has been alluded to earlier on, it's a 4-year job interview for both the company and also the research engineer. But also, if you get the opportunity to employ someone who has been absolutely core to the development of a new technology, and then you get to employ them at the end of it, there isn't any difficulty in, oh, well, we don't have that part of the lab book, or we don't really quite remember exactly why that was done that way. Transferring technology, the best way to do it is by transferring brains. It allows us to train and recruit and retain our best research and development staff. Yvonne, just before she started her engineering doctorate, was thinking about what she should be doing next. She wanted a new challenge, and if we hadn't been able to find something interesting for her to do within Renishaw, she'd have gone somewhere else, and that would have been a terrific loss to us. So the fact that we were able to say, well, you could go off and do an engineering doctorate, it will be in something related to what you're doing, but you'll have a free hand to do something that is going to be very challenging for 3 years, and we won't be breathing down your neck saying, where was that last piece of software you promised to develop for us? So that was terrific. We got to keep and enhance the skills of a terrific member of staff. It also lets us work effectively with some terrific first-class academics. The guy who was the supervisor of Yvonne is very well known in his field. Professor Andrew Moore, very well known in his field, very well respected, but also now has got a very good pathway to impact for his research as well. And I suppose this has been sort of drilled in by people who are on the inside of the AEngD, saying, oh yes, these people are commercially aware. Well, I can say from the outside, yes, these people are commercially aware scientists, engineers, and they're the lifeblood of what companies like Renishaw need to succeed. Thank you very much.